Okay. So once we download the PipeIQ software from our website, as Krista mentioned, you install it in your system. You should get when you first create a file. You don't have to be connected to the actual FAAST unit, so you could be doing this at your office. Once you connect or once you create that file, you'll have the ability. Now, PipeIQ allows you to do three functionalities. It allows you to configure the actual FAAST detector, program the FAAST detector, do your pipe design, and then after, if you want to provide your customer or the end user a copy of PipeIQ, they can use it to monitor the existing FAAST units in their facility. But for the sake of this webinar, we're going to talk specifically about the design portion. So you create a project, building name, floor. You can rename the floors. You can buildings. You can rename the floors. You can add floors. You can add detectors if you'd like to the floor. So this project can consist of multiple devices on here. So to show you, this is the pipe design portion. As Krista mentioned, with this type of systems, for those of you not familiar with this type of system, is going to use a network of piping. All that piping has to be designed and engineered so that you have the proper flows and pressures for the systems to operate properly and make sure you're within the sensitivity ranges for those sample holes. So this is our worksheet here, and these are all of our tools to use. Very user-friendly, very easy to use. So we can design a system manually, right? So we can add a detector, fit to window. Let's zoom out a little. So if I add this detector and I want to add now a riser piece, these are all my segments that I can include. So I click on the device. I'm going to add a riser piece. So let's say 10 feet. And now the direction from this piece, if I'm going to come out of the top of the unit, right here, it's going to be bottom to top. That's the direction of the pipe flow. If I'm coming out of the bottom of the unit, I would select top to bottom, and now the pipe would come out of the bottom of the unit. So we'll say bottom to top because I'm coming off the top. So now I have the pipe network or the pipe here. So to click, I select the pipe, and I can also select the detector, and then I can tell it by this button here to connect the two. Okay. Now I have the pipe connected to the actual detector for my first riser piece. If I double-click the detector on the detector itself, it's now telling me which ports that are going to be using for the design. In this case, I'm only using port 2, so let me disable the other ports, and you just simply click on them to enable them or disable them. If you want to enable or disable the bottom ports, you enable and disable the bottom ports. You cannot use the same port on the top and on the bottom of the same number of ports. So it's either one or the other. So in this case, we're using port 2, so apply. Okay, now we're looking at it from front view. We can change our views. I can go from top view, I can go front view, or I can go right view. Okay, so now let's say this design I wanted to come over. So I select the pipe. Now I want it to come over in this direction, so from left to right. So I'm going to add a horizontal piece. Let's say 10 feet, left to right. Okay, so there's our piece. So we select it, we select the other piece, connect the two, and now there's our connection. What I like to do now is change to top view. Now let's say, for example, I need to go in this direction. Maybe now I need to go 25 feet right to left. So I'm going to go from this point right to left 25 feet. Say OK. Even though it's not view, I can either hit the zoom to fit, to bring the pipe, select the two, connect. Now I want to move this over, and I want to go from left to right, 25 feet. So as you can see, now I'm building this pipe network. I could change it to an isometric view if I'd like. I can zoom out. So as I'm building it, you can actually see what you are creating, as you go along. So this is good when you're using if you have an odd-shaped room. Let's say you have a drawing and you've established where the location of the actual points are going to be on that print. You then it's just a matter of connecting the dots with the pipe network for that layout. The software does have the ability to import a DXF. I'll show you that later as well, but I'm just doing it more freestyle. So, for example, now I click here, and this is maybe my pipe run that's going to run 120 feet. The distance from the first hole is 7 feet, but since I'm under very early warning criteria, I want them spaced every 14 feet apart. So it's a 120-foot run, first hole 7 feet, then spaced every 14, and I hit update holes, and it'll automatically space the holes accordingly. But let's say maybe if I want another sample hole in between hole 5 and hole 6 here, I could just simply click on hole 6 and say insert hole, and what it'll do is it'll split the difference and now adding another sampling point. So we say OK. Oh, let's add an end cap. So we have the ability to add an end cap with a sensing hole, so if that hole is part of the actual protection of the space, or we can add a end cap that is a hole, but it's just there to test. So it's a test port, or we could say no hole. Okay, so we have those three choices. So let's make it no sample hole for this example. So say OK. Now here's our 110-foot piece. We're going to connect. Now our system's starting to look like like an actual layout of a room. So let's say, for example, now we have this piece here on the right side of our network we want to duplicate. We have the ability to cut and paste, just like you do with your standard PC-related programs where you have the commands of Control-C and Control-V to copy. Same thing here. So Control-C, I highlight the pipe, hit Control-C to copy it, select the pipe I want to connect it to, then just hit Control-V for paste. There's the pipe. So what it's going to do is it copies the entire parameters of that pipe. So now I say connect. Now there's my design. Okay. Now of course I can let's say if there's drops. Let's go to a right view. Let's say there's drops here that I want to add. I can add capillary points, or I can just add actual drops themselves. But let's add capillaries. It defaults to 3-foot capillaries. The length of the capillaries would vary based on the total pipe, the main trunk or the main pipe network. So if you have a small network, your capillary lengths can be longer. If you have a long main pipe network, then your capillary points are going to be shorter distances. So that's all going to be confirmed with this software. That's why PipeIQ, it is crucial. You do have to follow the reports that this generates, which I'm about to show you. So I have this layout here. So now, since I'm doing everything manually, I want to confirm with the software if I'm okay and if all my sample ports are within spec. I hit the calculator button, and what I have here now is all the performances of the holes, but there are no reds. What I'm looking for is if there was any red flags, basically telling you that maybe the transport time, which is the delivery time. So if I were to spray smoke in this one sample hole here, it's the time that it will take for the smoke to actually deliver and back to the detector. All of those holes are called out here. All the transport times, sorry, are called out here for each one of those sampling holes. If one was out, so for very early warning, the maximum transport time is 60 seconds. My furthest sampling point is 52 seconds, so I'm well within the requirements of it. I can go up here now, and I can create a report from this design. It create a couple of reports. I can create a bill of material report and a pipe layout report. So if I were to click on bill of material, you name the project, you name who designed it. You have the format of the time if you want in this fashion. Some countries do have different formats for the time, so it's just a matter of which one you'd like. And then also the number formats if you want all the lengths in decimal, so 10.5 feet or 10.5 feet versus 10 feet 6 inches in the example of 10.5. So based on the format you select, that'll generate. The software will also handle metric. So in the beginning, when you first launch the program, it'll ask you if it's standard or if it's metric measuring system. So you say generate. Now what it's doing, it's generating a report based on, bill of material report based on my pipe network here. It's going to tell me how many elbows, how many T's. So total amount of pipe, I need 310 feet. Capillary lengths, I'm going to need 54 feet of capillary tubing. all my length references. As I mentioned, the elbows, I'm going to need 3, T-joints 1, and caps 2, right? Tell us that obviously the number of detectors, you need 1, you need a power supply, a couple of batteries. So this is your complete bill of material. We'll even tell you the number of hangers, right? You need 100 hangers for that layout. This can then be, so then you can scroll through a page and you can get an idea of all the pipe segment numbers, right? So P1 was each feet, P2 was whatever the distances were. Then your end caps and your whole locations. So now you can come here and you can then export this report. You can export it in a PDF format, an Excel sheet, or a Word document. An Excel could be good. Maybe you want to throw prices on the column. You can do that as well. So that's how you would save the bill of material report. The other report that'll generate is the pipe layout report. Now, this report is a much more detailed report. This report is going to give all the performances. The bill of material report is just going to be the parts and the pieces that you'll need to put the system together. This report is going to tell you where the sample holes need to be drilled, what size sample holes need to be drilled, and so forth. So you have the minimum and maximum performances of your entire system. So as far as which holes have the best transport times, which has the least transport times. Here's your detection category. So we designed this for very early warning fire detection. Here's our parameters for very early warning. Go to the next page. Here's our holes. So here's our hole indicators or identifiers, and then the actual size, the drill size. We have our distances. So this is the distance from the actual, and these are the distances on that segment itself. So I created let me move this. This was a 110-foot section. So starting from this point to that first capillary point, that is 7 feet. Then the 14 feet is the distance between the next port and so forth. So those are all the relative distance from the previous point. These distances are from the actual detector. So you have 2 sets of distances to deal with. So you go through, this tells you all of the sensitivities or the obscurations for each level. As Krista mentioned, there are 5 trigger levels from both the FAAST 8100 and the FAAST XT. They both have 5 stages, so these are the sensitivities of the sample holes for all 5 stages. And you have daytime, nighttime, and weekend sensitivities. And of course, now this report can also be, here's the whole designations. This report can also be saved as a PDF, an Excel sheet, or a Word document as well. And then, of course, email to anybody to open up with those appropriate programs. Okay, let's close the report. So another good feature with the PipeIQ is, you can even be used if you want to provide a quick quote to a customer, even if it's in a regular shaped room. You can make a square out of that space to give you an idea as far as a ballpark coverage and how many detectors you would need for that space. But what I would recommend using is our Pipe Wizard. Pipe Wizard. So let me get rid of this. Design. What Pipe Wizard will do, it will allow you to, it's going to ask for a series of questions. You answer the questions, and it'll design the system for you. After you've done this a couple of times, you can breeze through this very, very rapidly. I mean, we can go through this in seconds. But first, you select which detection category you're looking to meet. So very early warning, or standard fire. So very early warning, every sample hole is going to cover an area of 200 square feet with a transport time of 60 seconds. That means from that furthest point, it cannot be any longer than 60 seconds for very early warning. For early warning, every sample port covers a 400 square foot pattern, and its transport time from the furthest hole is 90 seconds. Standard fire, 900 square feet of coverage per sample point with 120 seconds. So for the sake of the webinar, let's select the very early warning. The pipe properties down here, CPVC, PVC, UPVC, ABS can be all accommodated with FAAST depending on the application. CPVC is what's traditionally used. It's the orange colored material, but it will accommodate other pipe. The crucial element to the whole calculation is the internal diameter. So if you can see here, we can support 1/2 inch to 3/4 inch internal diameter on the piping. You leave the hole sizing at 1/8. So say next. Okay. What are the dimensions of the room? So let's say 110 by 45 feet wide. Ceiling height is 14. So it says to cover this much area, you're going to need 4 outlets or the 4 inlets used. Okay, so here's our design, what's going to look like. Down here, we ask you if it's the detector, the physical FAAST unit itself, is that going to be located inside or outside the room? The reason we ask this is so if you do select outside the room, but let's say you're protecting now space inside another area, you are, with anybody's air sampling systems, you have to return the exhaust back into the space that you're sampling from. So the only reason we even ask you this question is so that we alert you there with this icon that says detector should be exhausted back into that room when possible to avoid any pressure differentials. But if you're in the same space, you just remove the end cap, or you remove the plug on the exhaust port of the FAAST unit and just let it exhaust in that space. The distance from the floor, this is the physical distance height of the actual detector, the mounting height. So if you notice, we have the height of the ceiling with the height of the physical mounting. We're going to calculate your riser piece. All right, so we say next. Okay, where's the pipe going to be located? Is it going to be below the ceiling or above the ceiling? Below the ceiling, above the ceiling, or below floor? Below the ceiling is still at the ceiling level, but it's exposed. You'll be able to see the actual piping at the ceiling. If you select above the ceiling, now the piping will go, let's say if it's a drop ceiling, the piping can go above the ceiling, and now we give you the capillary option to set the capillary lengths, and then of course the inner diameter of that capillary tubing that you're using. Or you can select below floor. If you're doing in the data center, you want to protect below, underneath the raised floor, you can select below floor. So let's do below ceiling. Okay, now we have pipe network direction. All this is on this worksheet here, on this white page, is the orientation of the actual layout. So if you want the detector, let's say here on the left-hand side, and you want the pipes flowing in this direction, you would select left to right, right? If you wanted the detector up here and the pipes flowing down, you would select top to bottom. So it's just the actual physical layout of the detector on that sheet. So we'll keep it left to right. Next, and we're done. It really is 3 questions it asks. Here's a summary. Okay, so for very early warning, 60 seconds, inside the room, 5 feet. We say finished, and it'll design, there's our system, right? So here's our 4 pipe systems for that 110 by 45 room. Again, now we can, look different view, different angles, isometric view. You can hold down if you have a mouse with the wheel on it, you can hold on the wheel, and you can actually change the perspectives and the views of it. But you can always revert back to, front view, top view, or right view. This button here will zoom to fit. So if you notice, if I zoom in too much, I can then just fit the window, change the top view, fit the window, right? So here's our detector. Here's our pipe layout. So again, now if you wanted to use it as a quote, you can give a quote. Just get the dimensions of that space. Like I said, if you want to create a square out of that, even an irregular shaped, you can get an idea as the coverage that you'll be able to use. Now you go, again, now you can create a report, right? Bill of material report from this after we created Pipe Wizard. Now this design is going to require 491 feet. Okay, same thing with all the different requirements. Let's say a lot of questions we get is, okay, can I use Pipe Wizard initially, but then can I make some modifications to it manually? And the answer is absolutely. So let's say, for example, we have at the end of this, we can move the drawing over to. Let's say at the end here, we have maybe a ductwork in the way. So we need to have the pipe go around a ductwork in this fashion. So from here, come down, a couple of 90s, come back up and continue. That's not a problem. You double-click the pipe. We have to remove the end cap because the end cap, we can't connect the pipe to an end cap. So we remove the end cap. So we now select the piece. here's our manually adding parts. So we're going to add a pipe here, and we're going to go down and around that ductwork, let's say. So we're going to say, I don't know, it's a 2-foot ductwork, and we're going to go top to bottom. So we have a pipe. You can either clip the pipe and drag it, and it'll snap into place, or as I mentioned, you can use this connect pipe tool. So now we're going to go around that ductwork. So I'm going to say 2 feet from left to right. Oops, wrong button. Connect. 2 feet around it, around the top, connect. And now let's say we're around that obstruction that's in the way. Now we can continue our run. So let's say it's 45 feet, and we're going to just place the holes. Okay, no sensing hole. Okay, so now we've just made our way around an obstruction. Now our pipe network looks something like this. Okay, so now what we do have with PipeIQ is as I showed you, is we have the ability to cut and paste. So let's say, oh, and by the way, when I connect, it's because I connect this piece to this main trunk, right? There is a 90. Here, let me zoom in. Okay, there's a 90 now. So when I do the bill of material, just because I've connected a piece here, it automatically knows to add that 90 to the bill of material, just by adding the 2 pieces together. If I were to bring another piece out of here, let's say out of this segment and continue in this direction, then it would know it's a T there. So it would include automatically the T in your bill of material. So let's say we want to duplicate this design for all the remaining 3 pipes in this system. We can do that as well using the cut and paste, but we can cut and paste multiple pipes. So first things first is we have to remove the end caps from those 3 pipes, those 3 remaining pipes. So let's get rid of the end caps. Okay, and actually let's make this more like, let's make this 20 feet. So let's copy this for each one of these branches. So let's change the view. Okay. Oh, I don't want to work with that view. Let's work with this view. Okay. So I want to copy multiple pipes. So what we do is, which by the way, it's all the shortcuts that I'm using on my keyboard, which obviously you guys can't see. They're all up here. So if you were to just go up here and click this, you'll get a list of all shortcuts that you can use on the software. But the shortcut to select multiple pipes is holding down or enabling the caps lock. Once the caps lock is on, now you can select just the first piece, and it'll take everything after. So caps lock's down. Now it just highlighted that entity. So now I can copy, select this piece. Now I just want to paste. Okay, let's move that. So now I select these 2 pieces because I want to connect them. Okay. So now I select this piece, paste. So as you can see, this can be done very quickly without having to duplicate each one of those pipes. Okay. Now we look at this. So now we've been designing this manually. How do we know if we're still within the specifications of the product? As I mentioned, we have the calculator. You hit calculator. Okay. So as I mentioned, the software will completely supervise for your design. So if you're designing something that's outside of the parameters of let's say for very early warning detection criteria, which is in this case we're having a couple of red flags on this further sample points, is because of the transport time. We're exceeding the 60 seconds allowed by very early warning for the transport times. So now we can change the size of the holes, sampling ports, and sort of wish for the best, or we have this one feature here, which is a pretty powerful feature, which is auto balance. What it'll do is, if you notice all the size holes are 1/8 inch holes, what this button will do is it'll automatically adjust all those holes to get rid of any outside of the parameters. So let's hit auto balance. Okay. If you notice now, these holes are 1/8 inch, these are 9/64, it's 5/32. So it'll automatically do that for you, and now your transport times are within the very early warning category. So we can use this design. So that's an example just showing, again, there's much more that this can do, but again, for the sake of the webinar, those are what you could, there's also tools we've added. For example, if you want to label all the sampling holes, you can label the sample holes as well. And even here, we run a tally of the total amount of pipe. So if you were to click Control A, it will tell you the amount of pipe that our running tally, the amount of pipe on this network. I think that pretty much sums it up. We do have the ability to import. I just want to show you real quick, import a drawing, right? So we can import a floor plan and work off the floor plan if we choose to do that as well. Now we can start building our network over here. Maybe we want to protect the cubicle space here. We can design the pipe network over it. Let's get back to the presentation. Okay. So as Krista mentioned, we do highly recommend that you download FAAST or PipeIQ from our website. It's once you download it, if there are any updates to the actual PipeIQ software, you'll get an email alerting you that there's a new version of PipeIQ, such as this PipeIQ 2.0 to support the XT. You do not need to be connected, as I mentioned, and then they're all dumped. Once you have all your parameters and all your thresholds, you would then just send them to the FAAST detector.